Welcome. How's everybody doing? Tonight we got a slew of stories. Some of them are very entertaining. I think you'll enjoy them. Rob Van Dam questioned Dave Meltzer's sexuality. Oh, that was going to be fun. Our boy Phillip Brooks starts talking about wrestlers and unions again. I think everybody's tired of me talking about unions, so we're gonna do it one more time for your boy Phillip. There's another story. I guess Vince McMahon and Dana White, if we get to it. Or is there another one that I wanted to talk about? Oh yeah, TNA. We wanted to finish talking about TNA. Now that Scott D'Amore has put out his vision and plan for TNA, we're definitely going to talk about that. And that ought to be very interesting because it's disappointing. The six-sided ring is not coming back. He's already said it. He don't want the six-sided ring back because of talent safety issues. So if you thought it was going to be TNA the way you thought it was going to be TNA, you're wrong, mister. Other than that, we're probably going to also do a little bit of talking about something else, but I can't really think of it at the moment. But we're going to start with Rob Van Dam and Dave Meltzer. So this is the humorous thing about wrestling media is sometimes these guys sometimes these guys do not take criticism well. Sometimes they don't take criticism well at all. So Dave Meltzer went on his radio show and he talked again about the issue of age in AEW. So he says, and this is Meltzer talking, well, Philadelphia was the city to bring them to, that's a good city for him, RVD, to be in. So I thought it made sense on the show, but man, it's a lot, It's just like so many people over the age of 50 on this show, and it's like, I don't think that should be the image of the company, but like individually, it's one of those things. It's one of those things where I can make a really good case for every single one of them being on the show, but there are so many of them. It's like what I mean. I don't get what he's trying to get out of his mouth, but basically he's saying it's too many people over the age of 50 on the AEW cards. That's what his claim is. His claim is there are too many old guys. Now, I gave Meltzer credit for at least being consistent before, because last time he was going off on people being too old. He was talking about WWE. And at least now he's talking about AEW. And there's too many guys over the age of 50 on the roster and working on these shows. So Rob Van Dam went on Twitter, saw this because a fan was talking about it, basically like, man, what's the problem? If they can still go, why not have guys over 50 on the roster. So Rob Van Dam responds, and I quote, I believe it's a homoerotic thing where certain men, maybe Dave, prefer to look at young undressed men, and after a certain age, they're not into it as much. Gotta be, right? What else could it be except a personal visual pleasure? Anyone know? A personal visual pleasure. And a lot of people are now saying, like, why didn't we connect the two dots together? Nobody ever considered before that Meltzer might be a little quirky. Let's say he might be quirky. Now I'm not saying he's quirky. I'm not saying he even has quirks. I'm just saying that I'm just saying it might be something. And of course, once he posted this tweet, a bunch of capes came out and said that this is homophobic. This is a homophobic attack. So the very first comment, if you go to that tweet, come on, Rob, no reason to go with a homophobic attack. Rob says, not attacking, it's my legitimate perspective. Can you elaborate on your claim or on my question? You're implying that Meltzer is gay and that it should be shamed. He says, nobody implied anybody was gay. Traffic is bad, and that it's possible I won't make my flight to Vegas. Now, did I imply I won't be at Sin City? Or did a bunch of oversensitive emos mistakenly think they should be offended? So, oh my goodness. So, so then he continues, all I know is 52-year-old Rob Van Dam would beat the shit out of 25-year-old Rob Van Dam. But there's a weird desire to see younger men closer to high school, I guess, for some fans to satisfy their flesh-peddling visual status. No joke. Flesh-peddling visuals. Wait a minute. Rob, where did this come from? This is pick a hand Rob right here. This is mocking Shawn Michaels Rob right here. He's in his bag when he's doing stuff like this, all right? Isn't Meltzer married with kids? Well, he's separated with, I think, adult children. But we all know that don't preclude him from being gay. Like, I'm not saying that the guy is gay. Let me put my phone down. I want everybody to know this. I'm saying it out loud on this podcast. I am not saying that Dave Meltzer is gay. I am not saying I think Dave Meltzer is gay, nor am I thinking that there is a problem with Dave Meltzer being gay. I am laughing at Rob Van Dam's implication that Dave Meltzer may have visual quirks that he prefers. And the fact that he is such a huge fan of noted, I don't want to say it, but Kenny Omega. He's such a big booster for Kenny Omega, knowing what Kenny Omega was doing in Japan. The fingers in the butt, kissing men in the mouth. And Omega was the guy, he's Meltzer's man. He's Meltzer's guy. I mean, he's Meltzer's favorite. All right. We just saying. The people are calling Rob Van Dam homophobic. It's saying that he went on a homophobic attack against Dave Meltzer. What an entertaining turn of events it ended up being, though. But here's the thing. Meltzer, when he was talking about WWE, was trying to say that audiences don't want to see older guys. That was his opinion, is that the 18 to 34 should have guys in that same age bracket that they can look up to. I disagreed. I don't think that it necessarily has to be people in the 18 to 34 demographic, because people don't give a shit how old Undertaker is or Stone Cold Steve Austin or Hulk Hogan or whatever. If they want to see him, they'll see him. I mean, what was this, 2 or 3 weeks ago, where Undertaker and guys like that had a huge rating on NXT? The fact that he was over the age of 50, nobody cared. The fact that he wasn't even wrestling, nobody cared. Now, I'm not saying that age doesn't matter, age and athleticism. What I'm saying is Meltzer harping on it the way that he did when WWE was on, when they had like Edge and guys like that on the show, and he harped on how old these guys was. I mean, he would spend so much time talking about how old they were, and now he's doing the same thing in with AEW, you know, and yes, people looked at like Flair and Sting and the Hardys and RVD and all these guys being on the same show and how old these guys were. You know, Jericho was on that show too, by the way. But I don't think anybody really cares as long as these guys can do most of what they used to be able to do. Like Rob Van Dam, I think he's the wrong guy to go after when you start saying, oh, these guys are too old. He's not the right guy to go after. Not just because he will respond the way that he responded. That's only part of it. The real reason why is because RVD can still do most of what he used to be able to do. He can't do everything at the same rate of speed and with the same athleticism. He's 52 now. He's not, 28 or anything like that. He can still do most of what he was able to do. Then there's a different guy at 52 who absolutely cannot do this. Matt Hardy can't do today what he could do 10 years ago, and he's nowhere near the same age as Rob Van Dam. I would much rather have a 52-year-old Rob Van Dam than what is he, 46? Matt Hardy? Maybe he might be closer to 50. He might be like 48. I think Jeff is like 46. There's not 52 ain't the same for everybody, like, and I remember I made a video talking about Taya, and I said, well, age does matter because she was in developmental, all right, and she's taken up a spot that was, primarily for younger girls. In this situation, Rob Van Dam coming in and having a match where he gives a young dude a rub. I shouldn't put it that way with this subject. But him helping out Hook, he's not going out there taking up a roster spot. He's going out there making basically a special appearance. All right? I'm okay with special appearances. So I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with Sting wrestling every once in a while. I don't have a problem with a Goldberg wrestling every once in a while. Like that's not a problem. It's the part where the guys are 53 or whatever, and they're the sole focus of the fucking show. Like, Vern Gagne in the past or something like that. Maybe you want to have a conversation in, back then about how old the talent was and, whether it's time to move on or not. But bringing in people who make special appearances, they wrestle every once in a while. There is no issue there, but some people are too old to start over. I think Taya was one of those people. She was just too old to start over. She was too old to try to create something spank brand new in NXT when that job was made for, girls who come from the independents or girls who are coming from college or whatever the case may be, trying to get their foot in the wrestling business. I'm sorry, but age matters in that regard. If you're just getting started, like if you're just becoming famous nationally at 40, I mean, like LA Knight right now, like that's when you start having like, but generally speaking, if you can still go, it don't matter. Generally speaking, it's fine. I mean, I grew up, Vince was 52 when he started wrestling, I think. He was in his 50s. Moolah and Mae Young used to wrestle during the Attitude Era all the time. Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe were wrestling. And they weren't going out there having full matches, but they were going out there every once in a while, taking some bumps, working every now and again. Bob Backlund, disappeared for like almost 10 years. It came back to the WWE like 45, 46 and was wrestling in the early 90s. This stuff happens. Sometimes an older person still has a little bit of juice left and they want to be able to pass it on or be able to do something, or you utilize them in a certain way. But this idea that Dave Meltzer is a kind of a fruit booty, I thought that was humorous. I'm not even going to hold you up. I thought that was funny. That's my favorite. I thought that was great. Humble 85 says, the wrestling schools will not tell people that because it's a money grab. Well, yeah. You know, trying to tell somebody they probably shouldn't try to be a pro wrestler once you've had like a separated shoulder and 2 bad knees. You know, you can't get out of bed, you know, without everything snap, crackling, and popping. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't be just getting started. Now, if you've already been in there 5 or 10 years, I mean, that's just the cost of doing business. But I'm almost 40. There's making no sense for me to jump up one day and say, I'm going to go be a wrestler and then start going to like a gym or something. Like, I didn't, like, I'm not Bernard Hopkins. I'm just about to jump up and be like some kind of freak athlete. I'm going to tear every fucking ligament in my back. There's no way. JS says, what sucks about AEW is that their young guys look like teenagers. And they have literal teenagers on the roster. That's another problem. WWE do too. Like Thea Hale is literally a teenager, and I think maybe a couple of other people on the roster are literal teenagers too. But Nick Wayne is featured. He's literally 18, like literally a child. I think Billy Starks, you know, she's mostly on Ring of Honor. She's literally like 18 too. Like she literally like just turned an adult age. But a lot of their young people are just simply not ready. And that's why, you know, LA Knight kind of gets a pass right now because, you know, even though he's 40 and everybody's like, oh, you know, his age, like how old he is, he's ready right now to make an impact. Where a guy like Brian Breaker or a guy like Carmelo Hayes, they're not ready yet. You know, they might be the next guy for a decade, but they're not ready right now. You know, LA Knight has already been grinding. He's ready right now. And if he was fumbling the bag like Taya was, I would say the same thing. Like, yo, you know, yank him off the stage. You yank him off the stage, bruh. But he's not sneaking up the joint. Now I do know people who don't like LA Knight. They don't like his matches. They think that he's too old to be doing some of the stuff that he's doing. I don't trip on that. I think he has serviceable matches, you know, and so what? I've been watching him on TV for 20 years. I think now he's got a personality. He's doing something different. He's red hot. Let's give him the shot. You know, it's now or never for somebody like him. You know, and if Taya was 38 or 36 or whatever she was at NXT, and she was the best, and she was phenomenal, and she was breaking through, I would say the same thing. I'd have been like, oh, let her rock. But she wasn't. She was not good in NXT, and she wasn't good when I saw her in AEW either. It's like the mid-30s is beating Taya to death. Like she was actually not bad before. Now, I don't know what it is, but age has really worked her over. So not everybody is hitting the same age the same way. 36 ain't hitting the same for everybody. You know, 40 ain't hitting for everybody the same way. Not everybody's going to be AJ Styles, man. And I've seen people make fun of AJ Styles. Oh, he can't go the way he used to. Like, shit, did you see young AJ Styles? And no way he's going to be able to keep that up, you know, for another 20 years. Are you crazy? No way. There's no way your body not meant to do that shit for 20 some odd years, bro. Most athletes are retired by their 35. Like regular athletes, boxers, football players, basketball players, Olympians, most of those people are done by their mid-30s. Wrestling is the only one where we expect you to still be great, you know, at 42. You're still supposed to be just as good as you were 20 some odd years ago. You adapt. When you're young, you focus on your athleticism. When you get older, you focus more on your psychology. That's how wrestling works. When you're young, you go out there, you take a ton of bumps, you jump off shit, you moonsault off shit. But then when you get older, you try to avoid taking bumps as much as possible, you know? And we see that with a bunch of people right now, like with guys like Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay. As they get older, they're like, yo, how can I keep doing this? I don't know how I can keep this up. And it's like, you can't. And I know you can't. Everybody knows you can't do handspring moonsaults and shit forever. We all know this. We're not stupid. You know, it's time to change it up. It's time to switch things up a little bit, man. And Ospreay tried, but ultimately he ends up going back to the dives and everything eventually, and Omega too, because that's what got them over. But Rob Van Dam cooking Meltzer. Oh man, I like that. That was a good one. And then the people who just jumped out the window and was like, he's homoerotic. Homoerotic. And then they start calling them homophobic. Yeah, like, you know, I have no problem saying that Tommy Dreamer has no business wrestling. PCO, he needs to give it up. All he does is take bumps. Bully Ray. There's a lot of people who, you know, they're too old. I think they're too old. I don't think they add any value, though. If Bully Ray was like, no, let's not even use Bully Ray, because I think he does add something in terms of his verbal skills. I think that he's too big to be a manager, though. If he was like managing some big, huge guy, like a big one-man gang looking dude, that would be great for Bully Ray. But he's bigger than most of the other wrestlers, even in his 50s. But he actually adds something to a product with his verbal skills. Tommy Dreamer, no. Tommy Dreamer don't add nothing to the roster, bro. We don't need Tommy Dreamer. Why can't they just say age ain't nothing but a number? Because it's not true. It only works for pedos. Age ain't nothing but a number. Getting down ain't nothing but a thing. Shut up. Shut up. Age ain't nothing but a number to somebody who can still perform at a high level after a certain age. When AJ Styles or Shawn Michaels or somebody like that who's in their 40s, even Rob Van Dam too, who still has a high level of athleticism in their 40s, like they can jump without tearing all the ligaments in their legs and everything. Yeah, age ain't nothing but a number because they got their shit down. But Tommy Dreamer, he moves like sludge, bro. No way. Tommy Dreamer sucks. And truth be told, he probably wasn't good in the first place, but he really ain't good now, you know. But I thought that was very good. Have you seen wrestlers in their 60s still going and adapting to today? Usually, guys don't even make it that long. Who? Well, I guess. Well, Terry Funk. Did he have a televised match in his 60s? I don't remember. He probably did. I think a lot of the Terry Funk historians would probably know for sure, but I'm not sure if Terry Funk even had a match in his 60s that I would have seen. I know he was in his mid-50s in the Attitude Era. So, you know, technically he was still working near his 60s. I can't think of anybody who worked that long. Maybe Vince. I think Vince may have had a match in his 60s. Didn't? Yeah, I think he was like 51 or 52 or something, or 53 or something like that when he had his first match against Stone Cold Steve Austin, which means 10 years later, that would have been, he was still wrestling. Vince was 74 and had a match. You see how that worked out. Well, he was 76 or something like that. And you saw how that worked out. But Sting doesn't do that much though. Sting doesn't take any bumps, and he just jumps off stuff. Sting doesn't go out and wrestle. People bump around Sting, and then he may do one stunt or two stunts, and that's it. Sting doesn't go out there and work high level matches. You know, I know we think that he does because he does crazy shit, and you're like, what is he? How is he still doing that? But he's doing that because that's the only bump he's gonna take the whole fucking night. You know, he's not doing no, he's taking no more bumps. And a lot of guys, Once you get to a certain age, you don't want to take bumps no more. And I ain't mad at you. You know? One Night Stand 2006. That's when Terry Funk had a televised match in the 60s. Was that the tag match where it was him and Tommy Dreamer versus Edge and Foley? If I remember that. Huh? How about that? As our midway our midway joint, as I transition to the next topic. Vegeta Lover 92 said, I saw people argue Earthquake should be in the WWE Hall of Fame. It's an interesting proposition. I'm not going to say flat no, because he was a main event guy, but his run wasn't that long. And he was really only a main event guy because Hogan liked him a lot. Not necessarily because he was just that guy. The Earthquake run at the top, because Earthquake was there for a few years, but Earthquake as a main event talent was literally only near the tail end of Hogan's career. And after the Hogan run, he really didn't have much left in the gas tank. Now, he did the natural disasters thing for a little while. But I think people just like John Tenta as a performer and as a person. But I don't see Earthquake as being a Hall of Famer by himself. His run just wasn't that long. If you're going to be a Hall of Famer and you don't have a long main event run, it needs to be like Yokozuna. Like Yokozuna wasn't around very long, but he was world champion for most of his run. Like most of Yokozuna's run at the top, he was world champion. And then he spent like a year and a half as a mid-carder and then was gone, and he was tag champion for a lot of that too. So he had titles for most of that time that he was in the company. And then when he became a babyface, that was a very short run before he was gone. So you're looking at 93 to 97, 93 to 96, Yokozuna. That's about as long as Earthquake was around. It might have been from like 90 to 92 or 90 to 93 or something like that. Or maybe 90 to 94. I don't remember when the natural disasters disappeared. But he also went to WCW for a while and was doing Shark, which was terrible. And then he came back as Golga of the Oddities. I think people like him as a performer, but I'm not so sure that I would put Earthquake in the Hall of Fame. He wouldn't be on my list before what Humble said, not before Bam Bam Bigelow. I would definitely do Bam Bam Bigelow personally. Bam Bam Bigelow never won anything either, but but Bam Bam was a main event guy in the 80s. He was a main event guy in the 90s. ECW world champion, tag team champion in WCW. I don't know if he won any singles titles in WCW. I don't remember that well. I know he was a tag team champion though. And generally just an awesome performer. And that would be the similar thing with John Tenta. He was a really good performer, but I just don't think he had enough time, But I don't know. He also is Earthquake an iconic character like, Big Boss Man or something like that, like IRS or something? I don't know. I don't think so. Like, I don't know. I don't think so. Oh yeah, Bam Bam Bigelow main event WrestleMania. That's correct. So sure. Yeah. Bam Bam main event WrestleMania. So he at least got that under his belt. It's just if I was going to compare the two, I would put Bam Bam in rather than Earthquake. But I'm open to somebody making a solid argument for Earthquake. Like if you can make the argument for Earthquake and you can convince me, maybe. Like he's a guy that I remember. I played with him in the video games and stuff like that. It's just that outside of his matches with Hogan, what more you got? Him crushing the Snake for Jake the Snake Roberts. I don't even remember them two wrestling a match. Like I don't remember Jake the Snake Roberts versus Earthquake at all. I remember Earthquake sitting on the Snake, but that's it. That's it. I don't remember nothing else. And I think he turned babyface not long after he wrestled Hogan. And then he was in, I think Natural Disaster was the babyface tag team, and they were the tag team champions. So he did have that. But I don't know. I don't think I can make that argument. I don't know. I'm in favor of putting guys in if they are long tenured mid carders. Like I'm in favor of like Charles Wright being in the Hall of Fame. You know, I'm in favor of Hardcore Holly being in the Hall of Fame. The guy was there forever. You know, like 3 generations of wrestling fans know who Hardcore Holly is. Either you know it's Bob Sparkplug Holly, or you know Hardcore Holly when he was during the Attitude Era, or you know Hardcore Holly for when he was in the later the late 2000s, mid to late 2000s. You should know who he is. You know, you should have seen him before. You know, long tenured mid carders, I'm for it. So if he was like, if Earthquake was around for, let's say 6 or 7 years, I would say probably, but he wasn't around that long. You know, like he wasn't around long enough to be a long tenured mid carder, and he wasn't a main event guy long enough to be a main event talent. Who, you know, so I don't know. I don't think I can make that deal. I don't know about that. He was a sumo wrestler. He was a sumo wrestler in his young days. I don't know. I think they should mostly focus on putting in guys from other companies now. Like, there's still some WWE guys to put in. Sure, Sid is not in yet. Luger is not in. There's still some big names that are not in. And I'm not even talking about, like, oh, they didn't put in The Rock yet. I mean, like, Sid is not in the Hall of Fame yet. Like, come on. Why is Sid not in the Hall of Fame yet? You know, why is Luger not in the Hall of Fame? Like, Luger is going to croak any day now. And I don't want to, knock on wood, I don't want to put that in the universe, but Luger is probably not long for this fucking world, bro. You need to go ahead and put him on in, you know? Like, we need to expeditiously with Lex Luger. You know, like, we definitely need him to get in there. It's just a question of I don't know, like, has Triple H changed the criteria? I don't know. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Does Vince still get to make Hall of Fame decisions or not? You know? I don't know. I think they dumped the Warrior Award too, didn't they? They don't do the Warrior Award no more, do they? Because I think when Vince when he left, they not only fired Dana Warrior, so she doesn't even work there anymore. But I think that they got rid of the Warrior Award too. I don't remember there being a 2023 Warrior Award winner. Was there one? So I don't know. But I think if you're in Philly, you should start doing ECW guys so it makes sense. I don't know who outside of Paul. Like, outside of Paul Heyman, do you run the risk of putting like Raven in there? Or Taz works for AEW, so not him. Rob's already in. What about Sabu? Sabu is like a snake, you know, like he'll bite you in the ass. You'll go ahead, celebrate him, then he'll go on a shoot interview and shit all over the company and shoot on everybody and everything. So I don't know. Tim White, okay, so they did get the Warrior Award last year. Okay, good. He was Tim White rules. I just didn't remember it. Okay. All right, so let's talk about TNA. As everybody knows, it was announced on Bound for Glory that TNA is returning. So Scott D'Amore says that with the return of TNA, they will not be bringing back the 6-sided ring. So Scott D'Amore says the 6-sided ring question comes up all the time. I was in the ring when the 6-sided ring was brought in. I know it has its supporters. The fact is, at the end of the day, almost to a person, the athletes that have performed in the 6-sided ring don't prefer it. They say it's harder on the body, it creates more injury, and more than injury, it creates more wear and tear on the body. Doing it night after night is harder on the body. We're happy to have conversations about how to make the product look the best. But one of the things, unwaveringly, that we're not willing to negotiate on or compromise is the athlete's health and safety. We're going to be a four-sided ring. I know that disappoints a lot of people, but my respectful and honest question to that is, do you really love the six-sided ring more than you love ensuring the health and safety of the men and women who get in the ring and put their health on the line? Do you want to make a more dangerous situation for them? Oh my God. There was a full explanation that was given about the six-sided ring a couple of years ago. I'm going to look it up while I'm talking. Because I believe it was, I forget, was it Austin Aries who talked about the six-sided ring and how much he hated it? I think it was, because he's a always complaining guy. So, yep, this was from 2018. Austin Aries. Oh, this is 2014. I'm sorry. I'm doing this on the fly. So let's try to get this thing working here. So TNA did this is back when it was TNA the first time. They did a poll about whether fans wanted the six-sided ring or not. And apparently it still doesn't pop up so I can see it. I wanted to see what the outcome was, but clearly the fans like the six-sided ring. It's visually pleasing. But here is a 411 Mania. EC3 and Austin Aries don't want the six-sided ring back. Austin Aries said, "What's wrong with wrestling? Letting people who never done it and never put their bodies on the line run the show." Then he continues, "Please, I understand. I do think the fans' voices should be heard, and I'm all for an interactive experience, but I'm not sure this is the appropriate place for it, nor do I feel the potential risk outweighs the potential benefit for the wrestlers. For those curious, I find six sides to be far less forgiving on the body and harder to maneuver around, especially on the top rope." And he says, "I guess I accomplished stirring up some debate. We have opinions, and I shared mine from a different perspective." EC3 said, "This is why democracy doesn't work. You people should not have a voice when it comes to my well-being and safety." So this debate has been going on for a long, long time. I'm trying to figure out, somebody had a really good explanation of why the six-sided ring was really bad. And they had it had something to do with the way that the ring is put together, like the positioning of everything. But I can't find it. But this has been going on for almost 10 years from what it looks like. So What Culture has 6 arguments for and against TNA's six-sided ring. I'm trying to look and see. It's all just stuff. Okay, here it is. So I figured it. I figured the nerds will have it. The only reason I would go to What Culture is they pay attention to everything. While on Steve Austin's podcast, former TNA X Division and Tag Team Champion Christopher Daniels noted that wrestlers often forget about which corner was theirs during tag bouts. Additionally, he referenced the wider spread of the ropes, a larger 130 degrees instead of a traditional 90, which makes top rope maneuvers more challenging. Former TNA competitor Sean Waltman and even Lance Storm weighed in on the six-sided ring, highlighting some of its design flaws. Waltman tweeted, "The six-sided ring might look special, but it's actually way more dangerous." Storm, meanwhile, devoted an entire blog on his website to the issue. In it, he highlighted such facts as the ring's difficulty in regard to shooting it for television. Quote, "Its 6 sides force wrestlers to perform moves in certain untraditional ways, such as the inability to run to the ropes truly perpendicular to the hard camera. While many competitors, both past and present, have been outspoken about their dislike for the six-sided ring, It's irrelevant in TNA's eyes. The ring has returned, and according to TNA management, it's here to stay. So this must have been when they brought the six-sided ring back for a short time. Let's see if we can find that Lance Storm article on the six-sided ring. Let's see if we can find that Lance Storm article on it. Because I know a lot of people like the six-sided ring, and to me, that's the one thing about TNA that was interesting. You know, visually it looked different. So this is from SES Scoops, but this is what Lance Storm wrote about it. The first and obvious thing is that the six-sided ring is stiffer. Now, granted, I've never worked in a six-sided ring, but I've spoke to many who have and they say unanimously that when they switched from the hexagon to the square, the ring was significantly softer. Creating a six-sided ring is more mechanically challenging, and constructing a floor that gives well is much easily accomplished with only 4 sides. A stiffer ring means one of 2 things are going to happen. The boys will either have to tone down their style, taking either fewer or less dramatic bumps, or they are going to have to put up with increased damage to their bodies, which will eventually lead to more injuries and potentially increase dependency on painkillers. That's a huge jump in logic right there. Well, if you got a six-sided ring, you might as well just start taking painkillers. So I don't know. He said another factor that no one seems to be aware of is that the six-sided ring doesn't shoot as well for television. And TNA Impact Wrestling is becoming more and more a television wrestling company. Why doesn't it shoot well for TV, you ask? Well, it's quite obvious if you sit down and think about it for a little. When you set the ring up for TV, you need to have a clear view from the hard camera, the stationary camera used for most, if not all, distance shoots. To get the best view, you have to put the flat side of the camera facing the hard cam, or flat side of the ring to face the hard cam. In a square ring, you have flat sides along the right and left side of your screen. This allows the majority of your running spots to run side to side on your screen, which is the best angle to shoot most spots. Okay, so this guy is a producer, so I take his word for it on that. Now, I did find the blog itself. It's a lot. It's a lot of a lot. So he continues by saying, taking back drops, doing drop kicks, running the ropes look best from a wide side angle view. In a six-sided ring, you do not have side-to-side action on your screen. At the right and left side of your TV screen, you have ring posts, which means running ropes either have to run front to back, a terrible angle most times, or diagonally. Okay. He says, if not all that isn't enough, there is one greatly increased danger to the setup of the six-sided ring versus the 4. When wrestlers dive out of the ring, a very popular part of the ring, a very popular part of wrestling, where do they usually do it? They usually do it out the side of the ring towards the entranceway. They do this because there is no barricade on that side, and the catcher and the diver have so much more room to land safely. It's also the best camera angle to shoot all running type dives. With the six-sided ring, you will remember on this side, on the side where the entrance ramp always is, there is a corner post. Most dives don't go the corner post, they go over the ropes. Okay. So that makes sense. And this a lot of sides to the ring, but guys don't like it. And Scott Demore says they will not be doing a six-sided ring. So they're going to go back to the TNA name, but they're not going to be TNA fully. I'm not mad at it. I kind of figured they weren't going to bring back the six-sided ring because I knew everybody hated it. Jordan Grace is already bitching about the six-sided ring. You know, that girl is on every anabolic possible. And even she's like, no way, I don't want to work on a six-sided ring. I'm telling you, she's going to sound like Macho Man Randy Savage by fucking January. Her voice going to have more bass than Johnny Gargano's. She's gonna be singing like Blue from the Temptations. It's gonna be crazy. She's gonna be a bass at that point. So in addition to the no six-sided ring, Jeff Jarrett, who works in AEW now, says that he is excited to see Scott D'Amore's vision for TNA. And I can tell you right now, Scott D'Amore has talked a lot about the new vision for TNA. And a lot of it is basically how good TNA used to be at other things. Now, before I get to Jarrett, let's talk about Scott D'Amore's vision for TNA for a second. Which you really could just watch Modern Impact, because I don't think it's going to be any different. Again, unless he is going to change the roster. So he says the name of the company is TNA Wrestling. Every Thursday night, yada yada yada. Then he said, when the whole business zigged, we zagged. When small wrestlers weren't allowed to be in the main event, even WCW, for all the work with Cruiserweight, they didn't main event. They main evented here. AJ Styles was a world champion here. We changed an industry. When tag team wrestling was almost obsolete, we went out there with Team Canada, America's Most Wanted, 3 Live Crew, Triple X, and did tag team wrestling right. When women were still wrestling in mud and jello and fighting over who might get a chance to sleep with somebody twice their age, we went out there and gave women a platform to be athletes and be respected equally. We will continue to do those things. People have been asking what Impact Wrestling is. I think you're going to see a clearer, cleaner vision for that. It's an amazing time in wrestling. I'm not throwing shade. There are a lot of great things out there, but we're very confident in putting our foot in the ground, planting our stake, and saying we're really good at what we do, and we're coming. Interesting. I don't know if I will put Team Canada in like a great tag team conversation, because Team Canada always sucked. AJ3 has a question. What is this? Come on, StreamYard. Give me that question. All right, I'll just move on to something else. What about Dixie Carter or Get Her Offsprings? They probably run TNA better than Scott D'Amore. Scott D'Amore is such a shithead. I mean, ever since I found out what I found out about that guy, I really just kind of look. Thankfully, I didn't like him anyway, so it's not like I changed my opinions about him. But I feel more solid in my opinions now that I know about his proclivities. I can tell you that. But he really wants to get Will Ospreay into TNA for the new year, even though he won't be able to show up until actually goddamn February. But I don't know what he means, because how is it going to be different from what he's got going on right now? I got to mute for a minute because I got to sneeze. I don't see how it's going to be any different from what he's doing right now. So, let's talk about Jeff Jarrett. I don't know. It must be like some dust or something in the air because I got my throat itching. Where's the... Oh, snap. Did I get rid of it? I did. I got rid of the... I made a mistake. Oh, here we go. Very quickly got that back. So Jeff Jarrett spoke on his podcast about TNA. He says, I'm surprised in a few different ways, and that the conversations that I had with Anthem, I'll just leave it at that. All the way at the highest levels, I was pretty clear with them. Hey, guys, in my opinion, Impact Wrestling, naming that the company, was almost dead on arrival in 2011. I said, I just think Impact Wrestling is dead. I had those conversations in depth. I gave them the history, but they were all well aware of it. They bought the show Impact from day one. Anthem did. They knew it was TNA Wrestling Presents Impact. So going down that road and knowing I'm not a big fan of it, and that's where in my mind, hey, if you don't like Global Force Wrestling, we can figure out what? Okay, so let me. I thought this was all one comment. It's not, apparently. Um, some way, Jeff Jarrett is talking about trying to get TNA wrestling back on the air and using Global Force to do that. And he says Global Force is a chance for them to try to get back to me at TNA. And then he says, there are many places, India specifically, Australia in a lot of ways, they never quit calling it TNA wrestling. The double entendre isn't nearly as prevalent outside of the US. So all the information in my head, that's why I was like, okay, so now 5-6 years after you acquired it, you're rebranding. So that would be a little bit of a surprise to me. Because at the end of the day, it's all execution. What is Scott's vision? That's what I'm most excited about. Scott, what's your vision of TNA? I know what mine was. I'm well aware, and we could talk about different things, the 4 different divisions. How is that going to be presented or promoted? The 6-sided ring, to me, there's a lot of nuances. At the end of the day, it's the story. I was blessed with fantastic talent, but I'm excited because it's good for the industry. Change is good. That there is, without question. And then he says, one thing I immediately thought was, have they been doing a storyline to bring it along? To my knowledge, they haven't. And they have not. they have not done anything to build this up. They did do the original TNA World Championship was brought back. I think it was during the pandemic. Was it 2020 or 2021 when EC3 was there? And he threw the title in the garbage or something like that, or threw it over a bridge. And he was trying to tell the story that TNA is dead and it's not coming back or something to that effect. Like, that was 2 or 3 years ago. You know? I don't know. It's interesting. He starts talking about the Von Erichs and them changing the name of World Class and all this kind of stuff. He says, I think you could have done a hell of a storyline out of this and really got the current watchers of Access or Impact Wrestling, because you got to do social media changes, the rebranding. Oh boy, it's so much easier said than done. It's a full lift. So I'm optimistic about how it sounds, like they got until January to kind of complete the thing. I just hope they haven't, that they kind of get into a storyline to bring the people along, because I think it's a real authentic story and people can be brought along in the story with it. Well, it's too late. You've already announced it. They've already announced that it's going to be TNA, and there's no reason for it outside of these people got a bug up their ass about, losing their spot to AEW, and then the slow crawl of everybody else who seems to be catching up with them, from GCW to NWA, etc., OVW. Everybody's getting a little bit of shine. GCW's going over to Japan and doing stuff in Europe, and they seem like a viable touring brand, even though they don't have television. NWA apparently is going to be on TV soon. Reportedly, we can put that in quotations. And Impact has just kind of been sitting there. OVW's had a month of sellouts since they've done their show on Netflix. They've been selling out their shows, which is something that they talked a lot about on Netflix, how their shows never sold out. So Impact was dead in the water. It was just sitting there. And now they've rejuvenated it by saying we're going to go back to TNA. And then they immediately was like, well, we're not going to do the TNA thing of the 6-sided ring. I'm okay with it not being 6-sided, to be quite honest. I think it was iconic for TNA. It looked good. But you do have to think about the talent first. And if the talent don't like the 6-sided ring, I mean, I guess that's what it is. They have to take bumps in it, so it was all right. It's all right with me for you to say no 6-sided ring. I'm not married to a 6-sided ring anyway. I know a lot of TNA enthusiasts are. There's a lot of that. A lot of TNA enthusiasts are not happy, but I don't see how TNA is going to be any different from what I'm watching on Impact anyway. Like, these Impact shows have been terrible. Like, every time I see like a young talent, I always say, why don't Impact get that guy? Because if he's not in AEW or in WWE, he should be in Impact. I mean, that's to me, that should be it. If you're a young wrestler and you're not in NXT, you should be trying to get into AEW. If you're not on the Ring of Honor roster or, you know, not doing shots for AEW, you should be in Impact. And Impact should be going after those people. Like, I think there's a guy, Myron Reed. Two of his friends, like, he's a member of the Rascals now. His friends are in Impact. Why isn't he in Impact? Like, I know for a while he was under contract to MLW, but that hasn't been for a while now. You know, there was a guy named Casey Navarro. He wrestles like Warrior Wrestling. I think he did maybe... Did he do some stuff in Impact? And I was like, why didn't they sign this kid? He seemed to have some charisma. He's a little small, but then again, Impact is a place for guys who are small like that. But he seems to have some charisma. Let's see what he can do. GCW has guys like Jake Cartwheel and Starboy Charlie, and you're like, these guys are small, but they're people that nobody's ever seen before. You know, it's an opportunity there. You know, we need. I don't know. But even NWA, where there's a lot of old guys in NWA too. I mean, there's a lot of pot bellies in NWA. But they still even have a nice little crop of young talent. Like the Pretty Empowered, all kind of early to mid-20s girls there. Jordan Clearwater, Kerry Morton, you know, that young guy. There's a couple of young people in NWA that's coming along and they're trying to do something different with them. I think that if you are a young person in the business, you should be trying to get into Impact at the very least. You know, just saying, you need to be trying to do that very expeditiously. That's TNA. That's T.I. would say. Expeditiously. How did Impact lose a toy deal? I would imagine they lost a toy deal because they don't sell toys. I would imagine that they lost a toy deal. It's because they can't sell goddamn toys. I forgot what happened to their micro brawlers. They will never. I don't think they would sign Matt Riddle though. Look, TNA is probably, not to get too political, they're probably the furthest left wing company because it's Canadian. You know, it's run by Canadians. It's based in Canada. They're talking about having Pride Days and all that kind of stuff. Not that Riddle is against all that stuff, but the woke mob hates Matt Riddle. They think he beats his girlfriends, and you know, they think he raped that girl, Candy Cartwright or whatever. I don't think they'll actually hire him. You know, so I don't see it. I would do that if I ran Impact. I would bring in Matt Riddle, but Scott D'Amore, I don't think he would. I don't know. AJ3 says, sign green talent. Remember, people complaining about NXT having green talent. When AEW started, a lot of guys were green. Why is not Scott signing them? It's not even that they're green. It's that a lot of these people have not been fully exposed. The thing is, you could either get into a bidding war over Will Ospreay, which is what Scott D'Amore seems to want to do, is try to get into a bidding war with Tony Khan over Will Ospreay. You're not going to win that, for starters. Secondly, if you do win, you're going to build the company around this guy. That's because you paid so much money to get him. There's no reason for that. Not when you have a ton of young talent out there who are not exposed, who may have some experience. Again, I'd say it like a guy like Casey Navarro or a guy like Myron Reed. They're young guys, but they have some experience. They've been around for a while. You could theoretically get one of those guys and bring them in, you know, rather than breaking the bank on Will Ospreay. They talking about bringing in CM Punk. What the fuck for? Like, TNA at no point in time, even though they're run by like a multi-billion-dollar company, they got a budget. They're talking about running bigger buildings and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know if you're going to be able to fill those buildings, baby. Those buildings they run are still small. I think they run buildings comparable to GCW and MLW, which is probably 1,000 seats at the most. You know, so I don't believe that they have the money for that kind of stuff. I just don't think so. Dolph Ziggler would definitely fit in TNA. I think so too. If he was smart, he'd go to TNA. But he probably wants to wrestle with his brother, so he's probably going to go to AEW. If his brother were smart, his brother would go to TNA. Look, see, this is about, strategic thinking. Strategically, if I was a young wrestler and I'm trying to figure out where I could be best utilized, if you don't have a friend at a high level in AEW, you can forget it. You better off going to TNA. All right. Unless you're friends with Darby Allin or you're friends with the Young Bucks or Jericho or somebody like that, you're probably better off just going to Impact. At least you'll get a chance. You're not getting off a Ring of Honor if you're a young talent in AEW. Look how long it took for Sky Blue to do anything. She's been in that company for 3 years, off and on. It took them over 1.5 years just to sign her to a contract. And then it took months after that before they actually put her in a storyline. Like, she made appearances and all she did was wrestle, and lose. And that's it. It took forever for her to get from job status to slightly above job status. And she's been in there for 3 years. Like, no way, man. No way. Unless you've got a fan in the office or something like that, you're dead meat in AEW. In WWE, there's just a glut of young talent, a lot of people, and there's too much competition. There's too many college football players with a lot of enthusiasm and both their ACLs. And you've been wrestling for a couple of years and you're still unknown, and maybe you had a shoulder surgery or something like that. I don't know, man. You might be able to make it in NXT like a Carmelo Hayes, but chances of you just sitting in that warehouse, pretty high. And I know that they're probably just signed a couple of indie wrestlers. They're probably going to debut in January or February or something like that. But so it's not impossible. But I would definitely be looking at Impact. That's where your opportunities would be. Especially since they're rebranding. I would definitely be like, you know what? This Ring of Honor thing, nobody watches the show anyway. They don't talk about it. Ring of Honor is such a dead show. Not only do nobody watch it, only the hardest of the hardcores watch that show. And then they don't even promote it. They don't even promote anything that happens on the show. At least, even when WWE was, when TNA, when NXT was on the network, they still talked about it a little bit. They would still mention things that were going to happen in NXT or things that were happening on NXT, or at least they would have a commercial for NXT. There have been no commercials for Ring of Honor. They don't talk about what happened on Ring of Honor. They only talk about Ring of Honor when they bring somebody up from Ring of Honor to do a job. That's about it. Or when Samoa Joe or Eddie Kingston is on the air. That's it. Ring of Honor doesn't fucking exist in the AEW universe. It don't even exist. It's not real. The only thing that matters is, MJF has one of their tag team titles. Okay. Has he ever been on that show? No. Is he ever going to be on that show? No. Like, look at what they did in NXT when, Becky Lynch had the belt. She was on Raw with it, but she also went to NXT with it. You feel me? You feel what I'm saying here? MJF is a Ring of Honor tag team champion. Has he ever been on Ring of Honor? He's been tag team champion for like a month now. He's never been on that brand, and he's not going to be. So it's dead. It's nothing. You're wasting bumps. Like, it's fine if you just want to wrestle. Like, if all you want to do is go out and wrestle and you're just happy to have a job to go to, Ring of Honor is fine. But if you want to have like a career and be known and maybe have an opportunity to sell some merchandise and make some real money, I would get the fuck out of Ring of Honor. It's dead. It's over. I would rather go on the fucking indies than be in Ring of Honor at this point. There's just no benefit to it. They're going to have a pay-per-view. Really? Nobody watches the TV show. So they don't even talk about the TV show. Nah. I wouldn't do it. I would go to Impact. I ain't gonna hold you up. Think about it strategically. I would leave. Jay, that's me. He says Drew McIntyre should definitely go back to TNA over AEW. He definitely would be a mid Carter at best. Everybody's a mid Carter in AEW. JS says most of the releases should consider TNA. It's good timing that this rebranding is happening in January, right after the 90-day no-compete clause ends for the certain recent releases. That is correct. That is very good. Now, if I'm TNA, I would be very selective. Don't let anybody price themselves out of the market. That's where you get a guy like Dolph Ziggler. He might want a lot of money. And you might want to put that guy on Tony Khan. He's in his 40s. It would be great if he worked there, but you absolutely positively don't need him. All right. So you will offer him something clearly because you want him to come in. But if he starts, challenge or asking for an arm and a leg, you just kindly shuffle him on over to Tony Khan where he can get as much money as he wants to be a tag team guy with his brother. That's it. But if he's reasonable, I would bring him in and make him a top guy. Shit, I would rather have Dolph Ziggler as my top guy than fucking Alex Shelley. Not that anything wrong with Alex Shelley. It's just that what do you got with Alex Shelley, really? He has good matches. Oh, come on. Impact had a toy deal with New York Shelley Toys, which had a concept around Moose, Jordan Grace, Deonna Purrazzo, Eddie Edwards in 2022, but it got canceled. Well, look at what you said. They was going to try to sell toys of Jordan Grace and Deonna Purrazzo. Like, who the hell was going to buy that shit? What child knows who Deonna Purrazzo is? Nobody. Nobody. But I'm interested. I'm interested in the rebranding. I'm interested in the vision that Scott D'Amore is going to bring to the table. I'm just not sure how it's going to be any different from what I see when I watch Impact every week. So it's unfortunate. So we need to transition to another topic. Your boy Philip talked about unions again. We're going to talk about this one more time. And that's why I waited for so long to discuss it. Because I've talked about, I've got basically a playlist about unions. And I talked about it a little bit on the Ryback thing. So CM Punk, he was being coy about Survivor Series. About, oh yeah, I heard the show sold out. It's gonna be hard to get a ticket. As he was being asked if he was going to be there. Because of course they're going to ask, but what is his response really going to be? Oh, matter of fact, let me talk about David Hadley before I move to CM Punk. So he says TNA have been running some good venues. That White Plains, New York venue and the New Orleans venue they ran this year are 5,000 and 2,000 seat capacity buildings. Did they fill those buildings? That's one of my questions. Then he says TNA should get out to more community colleges and run in their gyms. Community colleges, local, maybe not community colleges, but maybe small local universities. Yeah, I can see you could say that. It would be a good place to build a fan base too. Because colleges are very eclectic. There's always artsy types on college campuses. They're always into weird stuff. College campuses are a good place to get into things like plays and theater and art. And if you wanted to position, and wrestling is at that nexus of sport and art where you probably could go on a college campus and really attract some attention. And it'll bring a different energy to the crowds too. Because all the Impact crowds look like smaller version of the AEW crowd. So that's exactly what they look like. AJ3 says that he picked Madcap Moss to go to TNA. See, that would be a good idea too. Madcap Moss would be a good idea for TNA for sure. All right, so let's get into let's get into the CM Punk union thing. Oh, brother, because he got it backwards like they all do. CM Punk went on this podcast called this to 670 The Score. I guess is this a radio station? Anyway, he said professional wrestling. Yeah, wrestlers should 100% have a union. I'll always say this, and I mean it in the most loving way. Wrestlers will never unionize because wrestlers are stupid and selfish. That's just the way it is. There is always going to be somebody else around the corner that wants what you have or possibly doesn't want you to have what you have, and they will do whatever the promoter wants you to do for less money. That's unfortunate. The boys never stick together. And then he starts talking about wage gap disparities, class war. When your boss is a billionaire and you don't want to rock the boat, this isn't in wrestling. This applies to anything. More often than not, people will want to keep their head down, not get in trouble, and just go about their day. For better or worse, people have mouths to feed. There are people with kids, families taking care of other people. They can't afford to lose their job. Fortunately for me, I've never been that guy. I'm like, I don't need the money. This is wrong, and I get to tell people it's wrong. I don't think the platform I have is worth anything if I don't speak from the heart about issues that I feel are important. Then he says, I'm just me. There is strength in numbers. If it were to happen, just like it happened at any other time, people have risen up and created a union or strive for better working conditions. It has to be a group of people. People have to stick together, and wrestlers are just never going to stick together. It's sad. A couple of years ago, and this was one of the responses, actually, and I kind of forgot that he had said this, where he talked about why there wasn't a union in wrestling. He talked about basically because the boys don't exist. So he says, and I forget where this is from because this is just a screenshot of a prior CM Punk comment. So I apologize for not being able to source it. He says, to me, honestly, there's no such thing as the boys. If there was a such thing as the boys, there would be a fucking union. And too many times you see people just get so unfairly treated. And there's a whole locker room full of people who would be, if it was them, but like, hey, guys, help me. And I was one of those people. The business is always going to be the business. It's just the way it is. I will always tell individual wrestlers you have to protect yourself. You can't expect other people to come to your aid. I found out the hard way. There's other people that it's still happening to. You could be loyal to a company that wouldn't piss on your ashes if you were burned alive, or you could just make sure at the end of the day that you're happy and that you're healthy. Okay. All right. Now, I'm not saying that he's 100% wrong about having some kind of deranged loyalty to your company. You have to have loyalty to yourself first. But I'm always perturbed. I am when I see people say that folks are greedy and selfish, because everybody is greedy and selfish. That applies literally to everyone. Here's the thing. Unions don't exist to protect everybody. Unions exist to gatekeep. That is the point. It's to limit the amount of labor so that you can increase the cost. In other words, if you want all of these sweet benefits, you need to put those in quotations. You want all of these sweet benefits of being in a union. Free, health care, which you end up paying for one way or the other. Time off, all this kind of stuff. Well, that stuff's expensive. And in order to pay for that, people are going to lose their jobs. I know you guys, if maybe some people are not paying attention, but there's a lot of strikes going on in the United States right now. These things are probably going to get worked out eventually. And what's going to end up happening is a bunch of people are going to end up losing their jobs. The cost of a union contract is the jobs of other people. And that's just how it works. You fight for all of these things for yourself, and that's what you want, by the way. And you win your contract, and then you notice that a job that had 200 people in it now have 180. You know, and now over time it's 165, then it's 150. And it's like, well, you got all these sweet benefits and you got all these sweet things for yourself. You fucked somebody else out of a job. The way things are right now is that a guy like Roman Reigns can live fantastically well, and it doesn't hurt anyone else. It's not at the cost of anyone else. It's 100% that the company feels that he's worth the money that they're paying him, and they're willing to pay him. And with that money, he can take care of himself and his family and have all the kids that he wants and live very, very well. And he gets a lot of time off. And so his working conditions are not too bad. In a union, it probably wouldn't affect him that much, but it would almost eliminate NXT. And that's the one thing that people, I have said 100 times over. The people at the top and the people in the middle will be fine. It's the people at the bottom that are going to be hurt. You know, like when unions first really get in, what's one of the first things they do? They say, oh, it's all about unity. We all work together. And then the layoffs start about to happen, and they say, oh, well, you have to do it by seniority. So then it went from being all about unity, we're all together. And then when the company says we can't afford all these people, they say, okay, well, get rid of everybody who just got hired first. Is that unity? That's not unity. That's not everybody working together. That's people saving their own ass. So somebody who just got hired 3 months ago, never missed a day, shows up, busts their ass, they get laid off because somebody who's been here for 5 years gets to keep their job, even though they probably show up late all the time and they've been written up a lot. Well, they got seniority because at least they didn't get fired. While somebody else got their 90 days in and they had a sparkling record. Is that unity? Is that what the union fought for? Is that so people can get cut by seniority? And they're going to get cut. So when you look at this stuff and you look at these strikes, and the first thing they keep telling you over and over again, oh, it's not the big Leonardo DiCaprio and all those people who are going on strike. It's all the little guys. And you say all these little guys, if they're not Leonardo DiCaprio, then nobody's going to give a shit. Nobody cares about these people. They have to care about themselves. And ultimately, in caring about yourself, you're exactly the same kind of person CM Punk is talking about. You're greedy and selfish. You think you deserve more time off for somebody else to pay for your health insurance, for somebody else to pay you while you don't work so you can have babies or raise your babies. And all this stuff, you just want more entitlements. Now, I'm not saying that these things are bad things. I'm just saying, thinking about things rationally, there's somebody who wants to work, who don't have kids, don't have the responsibilities that you have, are willing to do the job. And you say, no, you can't do it. You have to let me do it. You can't do it. I'm not going to work. I'm going to elect to not work. And I cannot be fired for not working. That was ridiculous, bro. It's ridiculous. And in terms of a thought process, it's ridiculous. But I'm going to break it down a little bit. And this is what made me so virulently anti-union. I'm trying to remember where I heard it from. But this is how it works. So I hate to be one of those kinds of guys, but you got to go back to slavery. So slavery ends. All the slaves are now emancipated. They have to figure out how to make a living on their own. They have these skills. I know people told you that slaves didn't learn anything while they were slaves. That was a lie. They learned a lot of different skills. Carpentry, shipbuilding, they learn how to do things with their hands quite often. And they try to figure out how they're going to take care of themselves. They go up to a white man, hat in hand, boss, I need a job, boss. All the white men are here building a ship. All the white men make 10 cents an hour. White man looks at this black guy, newly freed slave. No, he's stupid. I'll give you a nickel. Well, I'll take it, boss. A nickel is better than nothing. I'll take it, boss. He goes over there and he tries to apply himself for that nickel. The white man gets it in his mind, for the cost of one white man, I could hire two niggas. Two Negroes. So you turn around one day and the boss, he starts hiring more black people for a nickel an hour. The white man who makes a dime is going to sit there and say, where are all these niggers coming from? Well, boss is hiring all these niggers because they only cost him a dime. And the white man looks around and is like, there's a lot of niggers in here. And then maybe, just maybe, white man gets it in his mind that he don't need these white guys anymore. He starts letting some of them go. For the cost of one white man, I could hire two niggers. So white man, you want to get all loud? Now I'll fire you and replace you with two niggers. So then you get it in your mind that I'm going to form a union. I'm going to prevent these guys from making less money than me. In reality, what you're doing is you're trying to protect your own job because you see that somebody is willing to do the job because their option is a nickel or nothing. They don't have that sense of entitlement that they're owed a dime. They look and say, man, I was lucky to find this nickel job. So they fine with the nickel. They're good with it, at least for now. It ain't meant to be permanent, but it's better than nothing. While you who are used to making a dime, you're like, oh no, these guys are going to replace us. They're going to force us out. Instead of 5 white men building this ship, he's going to have 10 Negroes do it. And when 10 Negroes are doing it, it might be done just as well, but it's going to be done twice as fast because there's twice as many people doing it. Oh no, boss is going to get over on that one. So now you start saying, he's taking advantage of them. He's taking advantage of all you guys. You guys should all be making dimes. This job is worth a dime. You should be making a dime. Once the Negro started making a nickel for a little while, he's got a couple of nickels stacked up. He's like, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I should be making a dime. He goes up to the boss. Boss, I want to make a dime. He's like, well, nigger, we agreed on a nickel. Nickel it is. And then you get together with all your white friends and you say, you guys, he don't want to pay me that dime. That don't seem fair to me. White man, like, it ain't fair. He was taking advantage of you. So you go out on the picket line with your white friends. Everybody has to make a dime. Everybody has to make a dime. So then the boss is like, oh, you got me. You got me beat. I got to pay everybody a dime. So he agrees, signs the contract. Government usually got a gun to his head, figuratively, because he can't not sign it, by the way. And now everybody makes a dime. So now the boss is looking like, well, niggers are worth a dime, white man worth a dime. It's the same damn job. If he's racist like he was before, he'll just fire all the niggers. What do you need black people for? If I have to pay everybody the exact same thing, then why not act on my racism or my sexism or any other type of discrimination I might have? And that's really what happened when it comes to unions. It allows the company to be bigoted. You know, It's bigoted towards young people, especially. Like I just talked about it with seniority. Somebody who just now get the job. Somebody just didn't even know this plant existed until recently. You know, maybe he's fresh out of jail. Maybe he's a young guy, you know, got to take care of his parents or something like that. And then some 32-year-old guy decides, well, I need to be able to take 8 months off so I can have my third baby. So, sorry, Deontay, you're about to lose your gig. You're about to get laid off. Who's greedy and selfish in that respect? Again, these companies don't have infinite money. Nobody has infinite money. They have a lot of money, but they don't have infinite money. And they also don't price things the same way other people price things. You price things by the quality, or the quality of the product was one of them. Another is, how does this product create other products, or what's the profits that come from this product? So if you're a wrestler, you have to ask the question, as a product, you're Roman Reigns. You only make $4 million or something like that. You're not doing that shit because they feel like it. It's not arbitrary numbers on a page. They literally negotiated, this is how much Roman Reigns makes us, so we can afford to pay him this. Apollo Crews can't make that same argument. Trick Williams can't make that same argument. I'm sorry. It's not their fault. Sometimes these guys are younger. They didn't get there in time, or whatever the case may be. That does not mean that they cannot live a good life, or, in Trick Williams' case, work his way up to being in that place one day. But I can guarantee you that unions shrink industries. It's what they do. It's a monopoly on labor. We don't have how many new movie houses and movie companies have sprung up since they implemented these unions? Look at how many new industries of stuff that have popped up since the auto industry got unionized. It's been the big three and the foreign companies for fucking 50 years. You mean that they have not figured out how to make new cars yet? Outside of Tesla, who else is trying to make new cars? It's like, you cannot take a risk and try to invent better vehicles without the unions trying to clamp down, and you have to have hundreds of millions of dollars in order to pay for all the crap that they're asking for. Which is why Tesla is the only one that fucking exists, because Elon Musk is a billionaire. Somebody else who might have an idea about an electric vehicle, but he doesn't have Elon Musk's billions and billions of dollars, is he going to be able to get in the market? Probably not. UAW is going to kill that shit. And they have been killing electric vehicles too. I think electric vehicles would not nearly be as expensive as they were if it wasn't for the unionized labor. And it's not fully unionized. I know Tesla is a little on the outside. We're not talking about like Ford and GM, which is almost completely rotted with unions. But Tesla, they've done a great deal of damage to Tesla too. It slows growth tremendously because it's just a jobs program for people who've been there already and who are afraid of being replaced. That's really all it is. That's why my granddad got to work on a union floor until he was in his 70s. You know, and I'm pretty sure he had just as much get up and go as he did when he was in his 40s, and he was in his 70s. You know, they probably would have preferred to have somebody half his age working on that floor. But because it's a union and because there's nothing else they could do, he had to get up and look, I love my old man, you know, I really do. But that idea of him working until his 80s, he was taking up spots from other people. And there's nothing you could do about it. Again, this thing go by seniority. He had 50 fucking years of seniority. You can't lay off a guy who's been there, who's older than the CEO. The guy's been there longer than the CEO's been alive. And you're going to lay him off? That's bad public relations. But ultimately, The idea that of a rising tide lifting all boats, it only really applies if the tide is profits, and then you are the individual boat. Now, it's not no guarantee just because the company makes money that you're going to get paid more money. There ain't no guarantee. You might not get paid more money, but you might get more opportunities. You're going to gain more experience. And you have the opportunity to take that money that you made and that experience and go somewhere else and do something else. You're not going to have the job yanked from underneath you, which is what's happening to a lot of people today. Again, unions will, quote unquote, win, like they always, quote unquote, win, and then put half the goddamn workforce out of business. I mean, look at what's happening, and like Jay That's Me is talking about here. Look at what happens like with the fight for 15. They, quote unquote, won, and then most of the McDonald's became automated almost overnight. What did you win? You won unemployment. What did you win? Really? And all the people who are walking around fight for 15, now you've got nothing. Now you've got nothing. Not everybody can make the same damn thing. Not everybody has the same skill level, the same seniority, the same experience. Some people don't have the experience, but they have, more work ethic. They have other intangibles. People need to be able to build their roster of their employees in a certain way without the interference of the government, telling them they need to have a certain amount of Koreans and a certain amount of Jews and a certain amount of women and all this kind of crap. How can you run your company that way? Who's running the company at that point? You or the government. So it's like pay disparities, wage disparities. Of course, there needs to be wage disparities. Why shouldn't there be wage disparities? Why should everybody get paid somewhat similarly? You don't have the same skill level. You don't have the same talent. You don't have the same brain. You don't have the same work ethic. You don't have the same motivations. You don't have the same drive. You don't care the same. Some guys just want to show up, do their job. They're going to do it for 6 months, then they're going to quit and do something else anyway. Some people are here for the long haul. They're here for retirement. Some people are coming in, they want to make manager. So they're going to go above and beyond. They're going to stay a little bit later, come in a little bit earlier. Kids maybe brown nose with the boss a little bit because they got different ambitions and different motivations. They want to do different shit. You can't apply that to everybody. And then I see the genius, the 4D chess thought process of we're going to compare CEO pay to the pay of the janitor or to the average worker. Okay. Compare their responsibilities now. I mean, this stuff doesn't make sense. CM Punk is talking stupid. It's stupid. And here's the thing. When I get it from the perspective that he's coming from as a guy who has been in the ring, but whenever somebody gets the idea that everybody else is stupid but me, it's usually not everybody else that's stupid. 9 times out of 10, it's not everybody else that's stupid. Because he's not the first person to have said this. Kevin Nash has said it. And everybody says this stuff when they're on the outside. Oh, I wanted to start a union, but it never happened during my time. And then Kevin Nash was like, there should be a fucking union. You didn't start one. When you went to WCW, you ain't start no union. CM Punk didn't start no union. So what is he talking about? It's all just blowing gas. He knows better. And Cody said it when this thing started because he was trying to make AEW super left wing. The women are going to make the same amount of money as the men, which ended up not being true. And then somebody asked him about unions. He was like, oh, no, I had to kill the business. He was honest about that at least. And everybody knows it. Everybody knows that shit. The reason why the union shit works in the NBA and the NFL or whatever is because they're all monopolies. The NFL is a fucking monopoly. There is no other professional football leagues. Oh, but what about the USFL and the XFL? They've only been around for like 5 years. They're nowhere near the level of competition for the NFL. The NFL has been a monopoly for over 40 years. 40 years of a monopoly. The NFL is everything they say WWE is. Oh, WWE is a monopoly. No, the NFL is a fucking monopoly. The NBA is a monopoly. Major League Baseball is a monopoly. The National Hockey League is a monopoly. Major sports leagues are monopolies. Not UFC and not WWE. Those are not monopolies. They may be monopsonies, where they're the largest companies in their market, and they have so much market share that they can affect the market itself. That's pretty much undeniable. But they're not monopolies. The NFL is a monopoly. There literally is nowhere else for you to go. You have literally no other options. But look at how many people can be on an NFL franchise. I think it's what? How many players can ultimately be on the team? 40 times 32? So you're looking at maybe 1,500 football players total in the NFL? How many people want to play football? Hundreds of thousands. So what's the process of elimination? People eliminate themselves by being stupid. Other people are eliminated by injuries. Some people are eliminated by talent, which is probably a smaller number than you think. Other people basically say, I just play football in college. I have no interest in being in the NFL, which is very, very, very small number of people. But when you take into account how the NFL manages to get rid of players who are perfectly fine, and then what ends up happening is when the XFL or the USFL or the Arena Football League or something like that actually happens, the journalist class, and sometimes even the fan base will look at it as a lower quality product. They're not looking at it in terms of these guys could be in the NFL, but maybe something happened. But they always look at it like, oh, well, these guys are the worst of the worst. They're the bottom barrel. They're the guys who couldn't make a practice squad. And therefore, they don't bother to watch it. They don't care. And that's why the NFL can get away with having a union. It's already a small industry. You can't shrink it more than it already has been shrunk. These things don't make sense. Unions don't grow industries. They shrink them. So the idea that somebody is greedy and selfish and a rising tide needs to lift all boats is like, that doesn't make sense. Right now, a rising tide can lift all boats. Right now, a guy like The Rock could come into WrestleMania, fill that building, and then there's going to be people in the opening match who should be thanking The Rock for being there, because they wouldn't have been in front of 50,000 people if he wasn't there, or whatever the case may be. I'm just saying, I'm just giving The Rock as an example. You know? As opposed to, like we were just talking about Impact, if you're a young wrestler, you should probably go to Impact. I mean, if you are, scratch that. Let's rewind. If you are an athlete, all right, WWE is paying you to train, right? That's an opportunity. They're creating more people for the industry. So if you don't make it in NXT, you could probably still take that skill and go somewhere else and do something else. You can go on the independents. You could do something else. You have a new skill that you learn, a new passion that you can pursue. It didn't work out. Imagine if they had to shutter the Performance Center and get rid of NXT because Roman Reigns has to go on another 9-month vacation. And we've got to pay his health insurance, and for him, his wife, and all of his babies. Okay. He can pay for that shit himself. That's why you give him millions of dollars. So he can pay for it himself. LeBron James is not going to go broke if he had to pay his own health care. That's the silly shit. You know? He has to pay for his own insurance. Oh my God, LeBron James is going to be broke tomorrow. He has to pay for his own insurance. That's stupid. Why would anybody have that stuff implanted in people's heads? Most of these wrestlers can make more than enough money to take care of themselves and their families. They don't need a union. A union for what? Exactly. If they got a problem with, let's say, with Ryback situation, or they got a problem with the royalties, I think we should get a bigger cut of the royalties or whatever the case may be. Okay, that might be one reason why you would form a union. But is it worth it? Is it worth it to basically fuck all the young wrestlers and fuck all the people who are trying to really get into wrestling, as they transition from college football or something like that, so that you can have 2 or 3 more points on a t-shirt, when if it was worth a damn, they just give it to you anyway? I mean, again, you don't need a union when you're actually fucking good at something. This was the funny thing about the Ryback rant. When Brock Lesnar can negotiate. Why do you think Brock Lesnar got to the point where he can negotiate whatever he wants? Because he's fucking good. He's worth it. He draws money. People are paying to see him. They're buying his t-shirts. So he can go in there and say, you're selling a lot of fucking Suplex City t-shirts. I want more money. He doesn't have to form a fucking union to get more money. He walks in there. He makes a rational argument with his attorney and his marketing team, and not his marketing team, but his attorney and his agent. And they're gonna, okay, we want to keep making Suplex City money. So you want 18%? Sure, whatever. Snap that and keep on fucking going. Don't even think no more about it. But if fucking Mustafa Ali shows up, I want the same thing Brock Lesnar gets. Like, are you out of your fucking mind? It costs us money to make your t-shirts. We lose money on your t-shirts and nobody fucking buys them. So why should we give you the same? It literally, it's so stupid, bro. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. It's dumb as shit. And I used 18%. That was pretty much, it wasn't exactly a random number, because I know that Kevin Nash makes 16 to 17% off NWO merchandise. And he talked about that on his podcast. So it was like not a random number. I just imagine Brock Lesnar would make in that same length, probably a little bit more, which is why I went with 18%. So I'm pretty sure when people bought a bunch of Bloodline t-shirts, Roman Reigns was just very happy and very content to turn around and was looking all the new Bloodline shirts. He's probably thinking, yes, my percentage on that is going to be pretty deep. It's going to be pretty good. Everybody else is probably looking like, I wish I had a popular shirt like that. I wish people cared about me. And that's really what the unions are about. Is the unions are people, they're supposed to be for the people at the bottom. But like most policies posited by a certain political class, they end up hurting the people at the bottom. Because it's not going to hurt the people at the top. You're just giving them more cash and prizes that they didn't ask for, or that they could have afforded on their own. The people at the bottom are going to be, it's going to be like a eeny, meeny, miny, mo who's going to get laid off. And it's not fair. That's stupid. WG Phil says if there is a union, Punk would have ended up getting the same treatment, if not worse, than his AEW run. No, he probably would have tried to use whatever union powers to prevent him from getting fired. That's probably what it would have been. But since he got into it with his own roster mates, that's just how it becomes. Yeah, I mean, Ryback making $1,200 out of WWE a year that he didn't work for is humorous. I wish I got $300 I didn't ask for a year. The rebellion became the empire. It always does. That's how revolutions occur. The UAW is worse than Ford and Chrysler and all them at this point. because it's been a monopoly for it's been a monopoly for a long time, and they're just used to getting what they want. The only difference is they don't produce anything. They're vampires or leeches, probably is a better example. They attach themselves to a bigger organism and to start draining money out of it. But again, these companies they don't have unlimited amounts of money. They rely, I think I said this in the right back video, rivers and oceans. Follow a river long enough, it leads to the ocean. If you start asking for all of this crazy shit, just follow it long enough, it comes to you and me. If we don't buy the cars, then GM doesn't have the money to pay for their fucking benefits. So when car sales are not what they should be, somebody's got to get punished for this. Something's got to shake. And they're locked in with these contracts, so something's going to shake. Somebody's going to have to take the L. And it's going to end up being usually you and me who have to pay more for cars or pay more for products, because these people who they claim everybody else is selfish and greedy are being selfish and greedy. WG Phil says, remember when Tucker complained about paying for travel fare, but he was making $100,000 a year? That's so weird to me. It's because they have a sense of entitlement. People who've been treated like celebrities, they think that that's how things should be. They forget that a lot of people who make $100,000 a year, they don't have a company car. They only have their car. If they go on vacation, they have to pay for it themselves. They can get a nice car, but they got to drive it themselves. They don't have a chauffeur. And then you start dealing with the real upper crust who don't touch a steering wheel. Who is that? I think I just saw a video that said Jay-Z stopped driving in '98 or something like that. And like he's had a chauffeur since '98, like he doesn't even drive anymore. Like, yeah, that sounds about right, because he was the top rapper in the world from like '98 to like 2004. So that sounds about right. But once you let these companies and these people, what makes them leeches, I'm not trying to dehumanize them, but the thing is, what makes them leeches is they don't actually add anything to the organization. They don't train anybody. They just gatekeep. They don't, replenish. They only take away. Like the UAW don't bring in a new draft class every couple of years to funnel out the people who retire every few years. The company still has to go through and recruit all their own new people. They're the ones who have to go to hire people. They have to spend money to do that. The UAW just, hey, here's a sheet of paper telling you have to join us as soon as you get hired. That's what I did. I remember when I got during the pandemic, right as the pandemic was ending, I went and applied for a job at an auto plant. I wasn't even in the car. It wasn't even in the building. I didn't even know what my job description was going to be before the union started throwing shit in my face, telling me how much I was going to have to pay in union dues and all this kind of shit. I'm like, for starters, I have not even agreed to join this union. Like I have not agreed. And this is how recent it was. This channel existed when this occurred. Thank God I didn't take that job. I just basically walked the fuck out, because now I work in an office and I don't work out of no fucking union. I don't have no union, but I'm okay. All right. But that kind of thing where the company went through all the trouble of hiring you, bringing you in, doing orientation, talking to you, all that stuff comes at the company's expense. And the union just slide their paperwork in there with the IRS sheets. Like, oh yeah, sign off on this too. I'm not joining no union, bro. I don't want to. What if I don't want to join this union? Why don't you give me a presentation about why I should join this union? Because again, the unions are leeches. That means they leeching onto the other people too. Most people just sign up for the fucking unions because they think they have to. You know? And that's what the right to work stuff is all about. It's about whether giving people a choice. They don't want it, they don't want you to have a choice. Think about that for a moment. You should not have a choice about whether you should pay other people to work in this place, and they had nothing to do with you getting this job. Nothing. They didn't recruit you. They didn't train you. They didn't hire you. They didn't do anything. They just gave you a sheet of fucking paper once you got hired and said, here, sign this. And now all of a sudden you owe them 2% or whatever the fuck. No, no way. That's nonsense. Get the hell out of here. You know, it's ridiculous, bro. It's ridiculous. Now, I'm not going to, I don't think wrestling will ever be unionized. I think part of why the wrestling business has not had a union is because Vince is a better businessman than most people. And I hate to be the guy that sounds like I'm taking up for Vince, but we've heard about Vince getting into contract disputes with guys before. And if the guy is asking for something that's reasonable, he gives in and he'll give it to him. You know, when the Ultimate Warrior wanted something and he didn't feel like the Ultimate Warrior was being reasonable, he destroyed him and the two of them fell out. You know, when he has financial disputes with other people and they're being reasonable, and usually, again, it comes from a position of jealousy. So to use the Ultimate Warrior situation as a good example, when Ultimate Warrior sent that letter to Vince McMahon telling him he wants the same cut of merchandise as Hulk Hogan, he wants to get paid the exact same thing as Hulk Hogan, yada, yada, yada. He was putting himself on the same level as Hulk Hogan. So Vince wrote the letter back, gave it to Jim personally, telling him, basically, you're not fucking Hulk Hogan. He sells more merchandise than you. He's more famous than you. He's more reliable than you. He's more necessary to my roster than you. And it feels like a personal attack. But when you put yourself on that level and you're not on that level, it takes for somebody to put you back in your place. Right? It's like you were the star wide receiver and you showed up one day like, why can't I play quarterback? It's like, but wait a minute, you don't play quarterback. You know, you're the wide receiver. You're a pretty good one. You're not a quarterback though. Well, why can't I play quarterback? We need to start a union so I can play quarterback. Like, nah, man. Everybody on the team got their position. Everybody got their job. You know? It's okay. It's good to be a great wide receiver. It's good to be a great running back. Those guys are not going to make the money the quarterbacks make. That don't mean they broke and poor though. You know? They still do very fucking well for themselves. And just because a guy is not Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns or The Rock or whatever, doesn't mean he's broke. You know? Now, I will say this because I always have to say something should be done for wrestlers who are old and cannot work anymore. There needs to be something done. And they did the Legends contracts all on their own without the government forcing them, without a union or anything like that. It might not be enough. It might not be a lot, but it's something that they did on their own. Like WWE they've been trying to do it on their own without government interference. And it's not going to be perfect, you know, but they've been trying to do it on their own, you know, to keep some of their iconic legends and stuff like that, keeping them busy by sending them to cons. You know, they actually booked them for cons and stuff like that, putting them in video games, action figures, et cetera, so they can get royalties. That's how they've been trying to take care of the older talent. I think that's good, but it's just the beginning. They need something. They need something else. And I saw earlier today, I think it was, that Nas has started this this program. I forget what I think it's called, Hip Hop Grandmasters or something like that, where every year they're going to grant cash payments to people they felt had a tremendous impact on the culture, but maybe were not fairly paid in the past. And this year they chose Rakim and Scarface, and they both got $500,000 a piece. That's a lot of money, but it's only for two people. When you take into account how many wrestlers exist, you can't give everybody $500,000. It's just not reasonable. But if you was to say, guys who have Legends contracts, they could get a sign-in bonus and maybe guaranteed royalties of X, Y, and Z. They're going to be a part of the video game. They're going to be part of all the other different things that we do. And that would be, I think, a little bit more fair. It would probably restrict the Legends contracts to strictly people that the fans still want to see. So it probably wouldn't be as many people like guys like the Boogeyman, probably. Who knows? Like, why does the Boogeyman have a Legends contract? But, you know, I think they can do more. But I don't want to criticize what they have been doing, except I just want to improve upon what they're doing. Because, again, as people get older, you know, they don't want to sit there and rot, but they don't want to get back in the ring either. So I'm always thinking about those guys and saying, what can we do to put money in their pocket so they don't have to take bumps anymore, so they don't have to wrestle, you know? But we can't break the bank. We can't promise them X amount of dollars forevermore. You know, that's what the unions try to do, and they end up bankrupting the state, the companies, everything else by saying, oh, yeah, you're guaranteed X, Y, and Z per month. No way. You can't do that. You can't pay people for not working. You know, it literally just doesn't work that way. So maybe they should, maybe we should do something else. I don't know. Somebody's going to figure it out, I think. Somebody's going to figure out how to appropriately take care of older people who do not contribute anymore, like who are now going to be getting paid out more than they contribute. So, but right now they have these Legends contracts. So whenever they do DVDs or episodes of TV shows or the histories or documentaries or whatever, they call the Legends in to do that. Sergeant Slaughter, Mick Foley, you know, Booker T, you know. But, and I think that's good because they get money in their pocket, but it might not be enough. Especially a lot of these guys like Mick Foley are so beat up physically, you know. Health insurance is a very important thing at that age. You know, maybe they should pay those guys health insurance. You know, and that's the nature of the business, man. You gotta, like G Coalition Brothers are talking about, you gotta apply yourself. That's the thing about there not being a union, is that guys see what's available and what can be done, and if they have any ambition, they will pursue that. You know, and that's what I liked about the Swerve Strickland storyline, is he says it was Swerve versus the spot. It was Swerve versus the opportunity. He's talking about seeing what's possible and pursuing that, feeling like he should be there. Not that he feels like somebody should give him something, but that he should be given the opportunity to achieve something. I like that, you know? And it being presented in a heel way, I like that too. Because people people want to be given shit. And that's what I don't like. I don't like when people want to be given shit. They don't want to earn anything. These things are, anything that is given to somebody that they didn't earn will turn around and bite them in the ass eventually anyway. Whether it's a job, whether it's a patient. Like, that's why I don't concern myself too much about Nepo babies and all that kind of shit, because it all comes out in the wash anyway. if they are completely unfit to run the company or to be in the position that they're in, it'll pop up eventually, and a fool will soon part with his money. So I don't concern myself with it, But other people who are, envious or jealous, they are super concerned about people being given things that they feel that the other person has not earned. And I say you can't concern yourself with that. You have to just earn your spot, earn your stuff. When it's your turn, when it's your opportunity, when they call your number, are you going to be ready? Or is it going to be, well, Betty is the boss's daughter and yada, yada, yada. They don't want to hear that shit. Are you ready to take advantage of the opportunity that's going to be given to you? Are you going to show up on time? Which is a big problem that I didn't know adults had until recently. With adults showing up to work 15 minutes late every day. I was like, oh shit. It's amazing how many people have that problem, and having dealt with very recently somebody who felt like they earned something that I got. And then you start having to try to tell them, like, I kept it to myself, but the hard truth of the matter is that even if you are as smart as I am, even if you do have the same education that I do, even if you've been working here longer, no matter all of those things, I show up every day and I'm on time and I don't take days off and I don't get hurt and I don't get in trouble and I don't argue with people and I don't all these other intangibles that you actually do is why I got the job and you didn't. Right? But you could be short-sighted and say, well, you just got it because you're a man. Okay. Then that's great. I don't mind that. And, it's always people looking to belittle what other people have and what other people can do. It's like you have to, yes, it's absolutely that they just wish it was them. That was the Ryback's whole thing. When he first left, he was like, I was trying to argue that everybody should get paid the same thing. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Not everybody on the roster means the same thing. If John Cena don't show up, half that building is not going to be there. Like, you can't think that you're on the same level with John Cena. And that's one thing, again, that Vince has been really good at, is when these people get super egos, he's always been there to check them. He's always been the guy who knew how to check that motherfucking ego. Sometimes he goes too far, but Ryback seemed like he was another Ultimate Warrior. He was a guy who had gotten hot, but it was 90% Vince pushing him and really putting him over as being a star. And then in his mind, he became, he should have been world champion. He should have been this. He should have been that. In reality, it was all just booking. It was booking, smoke and mirrors, And now he's been on his own for 7 years. He's not done anything. He hasn't gone to TNA and tore it up, or he wasn't one of the first guys hired by AEW or anything like that. He's just been sitting in his car eating quarter pounders and shit. Like, what the fuck? You talk about all this stuff, that how it should have been. Why didn't you go make it happen? Why are you complaining on the internet about your royalty payments? Why not go bust your ass in front of these 1,200 people here? Like, just think if he was humble. He could probably be, one of these guys wrestling in like GCW or Impact or something like that, and probably have more fans than he does now. But he's not. He was a guy who had a certain measure of success, but was obsessed with the success of people above him and felt like he should have been there. And that jealousy will never get you anywhere, bro. That shit just does nothing but turn your heart bitter. AJ3 says, did you see the Dijak clip about the shooter and his thoughts on gun violence? I have not. I'll probably look at it tonight, and I'll probably do a video on it tomorrow if it's something outrageous. WG feels like, what about those who sued the WWE or cases like wrestlers who died? I know WWE took care of Draws, Brian Pillman, and the Guerreros. I do think that now it's a unique situation. I think each situation is going to be pretty unique. They do seem to try with wrestlers who died but it depends on the NIL and the trademarks and stuff like that. So who owns the trademarks to Owen Hart? Well, Owen Hart's family. They won't let WWE use it. So they could make more money if WWE can make Owen Hart stuff, but they don't. They can't. So they purposefully shut off a large income source because of his wife's bitterness. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying it is what it is. It's a factual statement. She doesn't like WWE, and WWE cannot make Owen Hart merchandise. So it is what it is. As opposed to Roddy Piper. Do WWE own the name, image, and likeness of Roddy Piper? I don't think so. I think his children and his wife do. But they still allow WWE to make action figures and put him in video games and do all that kind of stuff. So he gets royalties, and that royalty goes to his family. Now, I do think when it came to Bray Wyatt, they bumped it up to 100%, I think, which is amazing that they would give up 100% of the cost of his t-shirts and merchandise, etc. I don't think that'll last forever. I don't think that'll last forever. I think eventually it'll get down to like maybe 30, 60 or something like that. But I know for the first couple of weeks after Bray Wyatt passed, they were doing 100% of all merchandise was going to his children and everything, which was the right thing to do. I don't know if it's going to stay that way. That's going to be. And I think that the company should not take the lion's share of a dead wrestler. So Roddy Piper, if you buy a Hot Rod t-shirt from WWE.com or whatever, like 80% of that should go to his family. Because he's dead. There's nothing else we can do. You can only just keep making the same stuff over and over again. So the bulk of that should go to his family. If the wrestler is still alive but he's old, then you work out something where maybe he gets a little bit more than half. And that's kind of where I've kind of been sitting with it, because as I've been thinking about the royalty stuff, and Nash says he gets 17% of the NWO stuff, but it's him, Hogan, and Hall splitting it 3 ways. And I said, okay, well, that sounds fair because it's 3 guys splitting it 3 ways in terms of the NWO merchandise. But if it was one guy, then you're talking about 60% thereabouts of the product, of the money coming from that transaction. That sounds fair, especially if a wrestler's in his 50s. You're still selling t-shirts and stuff like that of him. Yeah, he should be getting like the lion's share of it. Like I'm pretty sure Austin gets the lion's share of his stuff. I would hope so at this point. Him and Hogan. I would imagine they get like crazy percentages. Ryback could have went to TNA after he was released from WWE, if we're being honest with ourselves. If he was humble, he would have. I think he believed that WWE was going to buckle and take him back. And then it didn't happen. And now he's bitter on the internet. And there's a lot of those guys who are like that. Rene Dupree and so many other people who are Paul London. There's a lot of guys who probably, I know Paul London has a love-hate relationship with wrestling. But there's a lot of guys who probably, if they'd have humbled themselves and maybe took getting fired. Like, look at Chris Masters, a guy who, got fired twice. Went over to the NWA, probably not making a ton of money. It's the NWA, for Christ's sake. But he's probably making a good living for himself, And still is young enough. I think he probably just turned 40 or something like that, where he probably could go to TNA or something like that and make a ton of money. He's not old. Not that old anyway. All right, it's time to wrap things up a little bit. Plus, my tablet's about to die. But yeah, I think that they need to reconfigure the Legends contracts for the wrestler if they pass away, where they get 70 or 80% of any and all merchandise sold. That includes cards, posters, anything that they make with their name, image, and likeness. Unless the company owns it, like the company owns Eddie Guerrero's name, image, and likeness. His family sold it, so the family doesn't get anything, which is probably not fair, but it is what it is. But if the family still has some rights to it, then they should get something, and I think it should be over 40% of it, if we're just being fair, So, especially if the wrestler is dead, especially if they died while under contract, even if it was a Legends contract, they should get the bulk of it for there, and it should pay their funeral expenses, and they should pay for their medical care too. So that's really where I'm at with it. Like, I'm thinking, like, okay, if you formally retire and get put in the Hall of Fame, WWE should pay for your medical expenses, but it should be contingent on you not wrestling again. Kind of like the old Lloyds of London thing that they talked about in the past, where guys would be like, "Oh, I'm medically retired," like Rick Rude, and he'll still be wrestling. Like WWE should be like, "Okay, we'll put you in the Hall of Fame. We'll give you a ring. We'll give you a Legends contract, and we will pay for your insurance. But you cannot wrestle. You are formally retired. Like, that's it. You're done. And if you wrestle after that, then they can revoke the Legends contract, because then you're going to increase your health insurance costs. But I think they should do that. I think that would be fair. If a guy, but then it would stop them also from putting active guys in the Hall of Fame. Like, it would stop them from like putting Rock or Rey Mysterio in the Hall of Fame. He's going to wrestle for another 2 fucking years or whatever. Because you would have to actively retire them, or say they'll never. Well, no, because then you don't want to give them the opportunity to go to Mexico or whatever and wrestle. You have to say that he actively retired and he can't wrestle anymore. I think that would be fair. All right. Thank you guys for your time. The Q&A will be bumped till Sunday. Please go to the community tab and add your questions to the question queue. Sunday, 7 o'clock. We're going to start early. It may even start at 6:30. I don't know, because I want to get it over with early. I'll see you guys then. Peace out. Thanks, everybody, for showing up.